Is Amari Cooper still the wide receiver one in Dallas, or is CeeDee Lamb going to take over as Dak's #1 option in the passing game? We're here to give you Cooper's 2021 outlook and tell you where you need to be taking him in upcoming drafts. Thanks for tuning in to the Amari Cooper breakdown video for the 2021 season. I'm Jay Felicio, and with me today from 14 Personnel is Marco Enriquez. Appreciate
What's going on, man?
Marco.
Yeah. What's going on? Appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to talk a little bit of Amari Cooper today.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So as Simon likes to say, let's dive right in. Let's look at his 2020 stats. He had 1,114 reception yards, which was good for 12th in the NFL, had 92 receptions, only had 5 receiving touchdowns, and he finishes the wide receiver 22 in points per game with 14.7. He's currently going as the 18th wide receiver off the board. We know, last season was a trying one with that going down.
Right.
What's your take on Mark Cooper's outlook for 2021?
Man, I love Amari Cooper. So right now, I'll say I've got him ranked as my wide receiver 11. So the value on him is really nice for me. When I look at Amari, the big thing with last year's points per game thing was the touchdowns. That was the big factor for him. And he's going to have Dak this year. Even a 75% Dak is better than Ben DiNucci and Andy Dalton. So I'm not really
Garrett Gilbert. Don't forget about Garrett Gilbert in there as well. So.
That's right. I did forget. And I think that tells you what he was working
exactly.
with, So, yeah, I'm not really worried about him. I'm all in on Amari this year. His ADP is so nice. And I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit later. But, when you look at him and CeeDee, they're both great talents at the wide receiver position. But the price for Amari is just unbeatable right now.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And people still label Amari Cooper as inconsistent. And, that was the case in Oakland, but that hasn't been the case since he's been in Dallas. Last season, even with the guys like Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci, Garrett Gilbert throwing him the ball, he only had less than 10 points in 3 games. And only one of those was with Dak. And that was the game that he got hurt. He had 10 games over 15 points, over 1,100 yards. He almost had 100 catches. And we can all but guarantee if Dak was under center, he would have had over 100 catches. He's only the 4th Cowboys player in history to catch 90 passes. So you bring Dak Prescott back there. I know a lot of people are worried about, is CeeDee Lamb going to be the wide receiver 1? Amari Cooper going to be the wide receiver 1? But you know what? Look at the Vikings last year. They're, especially in today's day and age with fantasy football, both guys could be studs. I don't think it's going to be this guy's #1, this guy's #1. I think it's going to be a 1-1A situation. The defense hasn't gotten much better. They're still going to have to throw the ball. And like you said, 75% of Dak is better than what was throwing him the ball last year. So you're getting a potential wide receiver 1. I'll be honest with you. I think he still has top 5 upside. I don't think they're going to throw the ball as much as they did last year. But if they do, that he could potentially be a top 5 wide receiver.
Oh, I think that's 100% in his range of outcomes. I tweeted this out today, and it was – in 2018, he saw 107 targets, and this is 2018 is when he got to Dallas. So he saw 107 targets. 2019, he saw 119. Last year, he saw 130. So like you said, I don't care if he's the wide receiver 1 or, the #1 wide receiver target or the #2 wide receiver target. His floor right now in that offense is around 115 targets. He's going to probably see more than that. You were talking about some of the games and some of the points he put up. I was looking it up, and last season, even with the quarterbacks he only had 4 games under 12.5 points for PPR. So it's like he's super safe. He's Robert Woods safe, but with way higher upside. That's why I love him at his price. Yep. With Dak, Amari has averaged 8.5 targets a game and 80 yards per game. And that's in 29 career games with Dak. So it's not like, it's a small sample size. 29 games is enough to know, okay, this guy's legit. And sure, his route running isn't what people thought it was coming out of college, but he's shown that he destroys zone coverage. And with guys like Gallup, CeeDee, Zeke, and him there's no way he's going to see much more than zone coverage because they're going to have to try to figure out how to stop these guys. And last year, with Amari seeing 130 targets, CeeDee saw 111. Gallup saw 105, Zeke saw 71. So it's not like even if they have some drop off in passing attempts, there's no way he's dropping below that 115 target range. I just don't see it for him.
Yeah, and I think you said it perfectly. And the reason that he's taken off since he's come to Dallas is they put him in a position to go against man coverage. They work him all over the field, put him in different positions. So all 3 of these guys honestly can play anywhere on the field.
Yeah.
So when you have three guys like him, Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb, you're going to put guys in the position that they succeed most. And that's what Dallas has done a really good job of, is, like you said, putting in a position to go against zone coverage. And the thing, too, is we all know you win fantasy football by finding value. And there is not a better value right now in the wide receiver position, in my opinion, than Amari Cooper, because you're basically getting him at his floor. I don't see it, with everything that happened last year. He was, wide receiver 22, I think. So he's coming off, right. In points per game, he was wide receiver 22. He's coming off the board as wide receiver 18. That's like, if I could get Amari Cooper as my wide receiver 2, I will take that all day long, because you're going to get that wide receiver 2 value, and you've got that upside with him as well. So,
yeah, I mean, he is undoubtedly, to me, a lock for 1,000 receiving yards. And like I said, at the end of the 4th round, I know I've gotten flack for this on Twitter quite a bit, but I don't know if there's a safer wide receiver in that range. There's guys with way more upside, but he's got plenty of upside himself. We've talked about that. So when I look at safe wide receivers in round 4, and that might be where some people, I know I kind of go this route sometimes, is round 4 might be where I'm grabbing my first wide receiver, depending how a draft falls, not always, but sometimes.
Well, and if I take Amari Cooper, I'm running back first early and often. So that is generally where, depending on the format, but I'm usually starting the 3rd, 4th round, where that's where I'm getting my wide receiver 1.
Exactly. And so if I'm taking Amari there, he honestly, like, I've compared him to Robert Woods. He's kind of like the wide receiver position of David Montgomery, like he's going to get the volume, and he's actually shown really good flashes that could be something special, like he probably, to me, I don't see any way he falls outside of the top 15 wide receivers unless Dak does go down. I think that's the only way. And that's why I like his floor. The end of the 4th round, you could get a guy who wins you a league that early,
Right. And even if Dak does go down, God forbid, but if it does happen, wide receiver 22 for a guy that you're getting at the 18th, as an 18th wide receiver off the board, that's not going to destroy your team.
Right.
So that you've got that safe floor, you got that upside, like we said. I think that's a good time. You talk about Robert Woods. Let's do a little bit of a name game. Yeah. And we'll talk about some players that are going around the same ADP as him.
For sure. Let's do it.
Like we said earlier, Mark Cooper's going off the board as the wide receiver 18. So we're going to do a little bit of a name game. I'm going to talk about some guys that are going right above him and right below him, according to Fantasy Pros ADP. And we'll see if we were on the board, who we would go with. So wide receiver 16 off the board, 43rd overall is Adam Thielen. So Marco, Adam Thielen or Amari Cooper?
So if anybody knows me or follows me at all, you know that Adam Thielen is one of the guys I want. I don't want him to do this, but I think he's going to bust really hard. So I'm all in on Amari over Thielen. Like I said, I've got Amari at 11. I've got Thielen at wide receiver 30.
Wow.
Yeah. I just think the touchdowns are coming back,
Yeah, that touchdowns year to year are so hard to predict, and he was so heavily reliant on them for that top 10 finish last year. So I'm with you. There's no question I would go with Amari Cooper over Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
So next one on the board is wide receiver 17. It's 44th off of the board. Somebody you talked about earlier, Bobby Trees, Mr. Robert Woods or Amari Cooper.
Yeah. So for me, I love both these players. And Robert Woods has almost become like that kind of sneaky, like, guy that everybody loves to be aware of that he's hated kind of thing,
He's become so underrated. He's overrated at this point. And
that's exactly how
Robert Woods is overrated, but like everybody's like, oh, this guy's so underrated. Well, yeah, he is. But when everybody feels that way and elevates his ADP a little more, I feel like that's the whole perfect fantasy spot.
It's like the whole fantasy community decided, all right, we're going to agree to not draft him before the 4th round, but we all want him there.
Right,
exactly. For me, I'm going to go Amari because I think he's got a very similar floor to Robert Woods. But like we were talking about earlier, his ceiling is just so much higher. And I do think he is probably the #1 target, at least for 2021 on that offense. So,
yeah, you know what? You said it perfect. That's exactly, I feel the same way. I think their floors are similar. I like both players, but I like Amari Cooper's upside better.
Yeah.
So wide receiver 18 is Amari Cooper. So the guy going right after him is wide receiver 19. 53rd player off the board, Tyler Lockett.
Okay, so I am still going to go Amari Cooper, and I know a lot of people are really starting to get onto the Lockett value ADP stuff going on right now. Like a lot of people are saying he's going to be a steal, and I think Tyler Lockett is an awesome player. But I'm on the side of I think DK is still going to take another step. I think Lockett's still going to see plenty of targets, but again, I don't think he carries the upside that Amari does. And I think some of his. And when I think of someone who actually is kind of an inconsistent player, Tyler Lockett comes to mind rather than Amari Cooper for me.
Yeah, I think you're reading off of my notes because I completely agree exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I do actually stole your screen.
That sounds about right. I fully expected that. I'm with you though. I feel like Tyler Lockett. I do think he's a value. I think wide receiver 19. I would be perfectly fine taking Tyler Lockett there. I think that's a good value. He is the more boom bust what people assume that Amari Cooper is. But he can win you weeks, but he's definitely going to lose you weeks too when he puts up a goose egg or puts up, 2 catches for 13 yards or something like that. So
exactly,
I think he's got the same upside, and Amari Cooper is a lot more consistent. So
yeah,
we'll roll to the last one. Who this is going to be the toughest one for me, honestly. Even though he's wide receiver 20 off the board, 53rd player overall, Cooper Kupp.
Oh man, so I'm going to go – I feel bad that I'm taking all Amari here. I'm going to go Amari. But if there's one player that you listed here that I think could prove me wrong, it's Cooper Kupp. That Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay combo is going to be so nice. Robert Woods is obviously there, and he's going to be a big part of the offense. But Cooper Kupp could be special in 2021 in the red zone. He's the one guy who could prove me wrong this year. I've got him at my wide receiver 15. I'm looking at my wide receiver 14. So I've got him quite a bit higher than where he's ranked or going in ADP right now. But I'm going to give Amari the edge because I do think Amari could be a little bit more consistent than Cooper Kupp with Robert Woods being there and that offense just being a little bit different than what we can expect from Dallas.
This one is extremely tough. This is honestly harder than, even though he's the lowest ADP at all these guys we're talking about. He's the one that's the toughest for me because, like you said, I love Cooper Kupp. The Rams love to throw it to the guy in the slot. Having Matthew Stafford there, somebody who can actually throw the ball other than Jared Goff from last season. So I expect Cooper Kupp's touchdowns to go up. If I was on the clock and these two guys were there right now, I hate to do the clean sweep as well. I probably still would go with Amari Cooper, but honestly, it's a coin toss. I would be perfectly fine with either guys. I feel like they both have a super safe floor, a high ceiling. I absolutely love Cooper Kupp this season. He's one of my favorite guys, one of my favorite values. But
yeah,
if I'm picking and both of those guys are on the board, Cooper Kupp's going to be the guy that I would go with.
So I'm curious, Jay.
Amari Cooper would be the guy that I'm going with.
There you go, Amari Cooper. I'm curious, is there any situation, like any team makeup, where you might go Cooper Kupp, or is it like, no, it's Amari for me?
Yeah, I think it depends on the wide receiver one. So if I've got a high-end wide receiver one, say like a Tyreek Hill or a Devontae Adams, somebody where I know I'm locked in with that top production, I probably would go Cooper Kupp because I honestly feel like Cooper Kupp's got a little bit of a higher ceiling than Amari Cooper. Okay. I could see a situation where Cooper Kupp, people are going to think I'm crazy, but I could see if Stafford goes in and just destroys it with this Sean McVay offense, I could see Cooper Kupp as finishing as a top 2, top 3 wide receiver. Like,
wow, that's spicy.
I'm really high on Matthew Stafford in this offense, and if the running, they have Sony Michel and Darrell Henderson and running back, so Cam Akers isn't going to be there to really soak up that value, those valued targets out of the backfield. It's going to be a funnel to Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, and Robert Woods doesn't get a whole lot of love in the red zone, so I'm all about Cooper. It's all going to be on the touchdowns, and they're completely impossible to predict. But we saw a couple years ago where Cooper Kupp was a top 10 wide receiver because of the touchdowns when his offense was clicking on all cylinders. So you throw in a Matthew Stafford who takes control of this offense. They, as long as they still continue, the only thing that worries me a little bit with Cooper Kupp is, Sean McVay targeted. Jared Goff targeted the slot position receiver the most out of anybody in the NFL. Was that because of Jared Goff's abilities, or was that because of the system? Great point. So that's the only thing that worries me a little bit with Cooper Kupp. I honestly think it's the system, but if it's not and they air it out a little more, that does work a little bit against Cooper Kupp because A-Dot wasn't the best compared to Robert Woods, but
Yeah.
if that is the system that Sean McVay is going to run and continue to target the slot receiver a lot, then Cooper Kupp, anybody who's going to finish as wide receiver 1 is going to have the perfect scenario. Yep. So it would have to be, everything the perfect. It's on the outside of the realm of possibilities, but it's something that, if everything breaks right, I could see that happening for Cooper Kupp. So yeah, I love them both. I think they have a similar upside, similar floor. So for me, it's really a coin toss, but if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably go Cooper.
Yeah, I like it, man.
Yeah, man. Well, that's going to be it for our take on Amari Cooper this season. Be sure to give the video a like, and if you want to see more breakdowns just like this, make sure you subscribe to Front Yard Fantasy on YouTube. Good luck on all your drafts.
See ya.